Is it just us
And
England?
will I be able to, you know, Harry and Josh, I've given them night off.
Okay.
And would I be able to share, can I share, can you allow me to share stuff, Jen?
Yes, I always forget to click that. So
Okay.
there we go.
Brilliant.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. For anyone who's joining in on the recorded call, I am Jen Mitchell, owner and founder of Jen Mitchell Travel. And we have with us today Irene and Brittany from our team. And we have Matt and Ingram from Escape and Explore down in Cape Town.
How's it going?
So I'm going to keep it brief, and I will let you tell us about what you do, as you do it better than I. And leave it at
Okay,
that.
brilliant. Well, I mean, I think I'm going to have to start the story about, just open this up, how I met Jen to start off with, seeing as we're with Jen today. Have you got that your side, Jen? Is it showing up?
It is. Yep.
So there is a lot of hard work that goes on, but I think the one thing with Africa is we do things professionally, but we have a lot of fun doing it. So this is the top two pictures there are at Sundance at Rob Redford's estate, where we were teaching everyone about Africa. And Jen, everyone was given a secret friend, and they weren't allowed to know who it was, and you had to do things for your secret friend throughout the 3 days we were there. So Jen was my secret friend. So I didn't we hadn't met before, and so I was doing little surprises. And this was at the end. We got the band. So then the bottom left-hand corner, that's one of the band from Hot Water who we brought over from Africa, and so they played a final song for us. And then we've got to when Jen came to Cape Town. That's my wheels, my African tuk-tuk that I use to take the kids to school in, amongst other things. And so we actually was really lucky that Jen just happened to be in Cape Town on a night where we were doing an event with Harry, the wine master.
Yeah.
Our wine master, we had our band, one of South Africa's really top bands, and it was at a private villa. And we were just, we were launching the villa, and it's, I think it sums up really what we try and do, is really make it, rather than an educational experience, it's creating memories and sort of that are going to last. So I'll just stop sharing for a second. So today, I mean, Escape and Explore, I'll tell you a little bit more about, but so we're based in Cape Town. We're based on the Southern Peninsula. It's 9 o'clock here at night now, or nearly coming up to 9 o'clock at night. And it's the winter. I've spent the afternoon on the beach today. We're having this most magnificent winter time. We're talking about wine today, which is ironic because we've had our we had an alcohol ban for a while as part of the sort of the whole sort of precautions with the pandemics to keep the hospitals free. And on Monday we were all getting carried away because the ban was lifted. Yeah. So I mean, this is obviously
so can I ask you that?
Banned,
so how long was the ban?
So the original ban, Matt, how long was it? Or judging by your shelf behind you, I don't know if that's
about
that's months.
About 4 weeks.
Wow.
So no, so we had an original ban, which I think that was like 2 months, was it, Matt? The alcohol ban.
It was a while.
And then and then they've just brought it in now, because they've been very strict in South Africa. So there was a zero movement. You couldn't even go out and exercise. You could just go to the shops when they initially sort of announced the lockdown, just to give us time to ready. We've got a very good private healthcare system, but with the public healthcare system and the expected numbers, they needed time to ready it. So they were literally super strict. And then it was on.
Can I ask you something? Did you guys have a lot of cases? Is that why they shut everything down, or they were just precautions?
No, this is before we had any. So, well, we'd had a small amount. But then, this was on the just before April. And so we went through that sort of home period, and obviously international travel and all, even it's only business travel is allowed at the moment. So you can imagine the sort of the restaurants and the travel industry, the hospitality industry in general is really struggling here. But now the cases have picked up. It's very interesting that there's a very low death rate. We've got a much younger population, and I think obviously, healthcare, people know more now what to do. We've learned from the rest of the world. I mean, because we've got the informal settlements, the concern was that there would be sort of wildfire spreading, and also, but and quite a lot of people with compromised sort of health system, health. As it turns out, that it is spreading at the moment, but the hospitals are coping. The Western Cape, where we are, the Cape Town area, the district, I think we've reached our spike, and now it's some of the other provinces. At one point, we had more cases than the whole of Africa put together in the Western Cape because we have so much tourism coming through here. But compared to the sort of US, UK, Italy, it's smaller numbers. But we are in South Africa's in the sort of top 10 at the moment in terms of cases. And they're being strict, so that on Sunday, with absolutely no warning, they announced that the alcohol ban was put back on, and with real mixed feelings about it. From my side, within the sort of informal settlements and the projects we work with there, it actually is helping because it's there's a lot of people with less money, and that in terms of sort of the crime and that type of stuff in informal settlements, it really does make a difference with the alcohol ban. So, and obviously road accidents and that type of thing. So it's tough, but it does. I mean, it is obviously then it comes down to I know this is being recorded, but it comes down to sort of civil liberties and the rest of the hospitality industry. I mean, with restaurants, there's a curfew now, which they introduced again on Sunday. So you have to, no one's allowed to be out after 9 o'clock until 4 in the morning again. So in terms of going to a restaurant and that type of thing, but I think personally, and it's definitely not everyone's opinion. I think we've got to get through this, and we've got to get through this in the most responsible way. And so it's a really decisive discussion. But the one thing which I would encourage anyone listening is, whilst we can't buy South African wines here, you can buy them in the States and Europe, and so it's basically to seek them out, because no one else has got this kind of ban. And it's like we were, I'll tell you briefly about a vineyard we were at. We'd already planned to go, and it was a little bit sort of it was after the ban, so we went on Tuesday, and because we were going there to look at a new experience that we're doing there, and you could just see they've got all the farm workers back, they're gearing up. Actually, the business they'd lost during lockdown, everyone was like stockpiling their wine, and there were lots of people were making deliveries. It was like booking a holiday in the American winter, so you've got something to look forward to in the summer. People were like, I'm just going to order wine because I know it's going to arrive soon. So it was great that that they could get going again. But it is the wine industry here supports a lot of people. So anyway, I will. I'm gonna with Matt. So Matt is so we've got 20 guides in total, and then an office team of 16. And heading up our wine is a guy called Harry Melk, and he is the head of the Cape Wine Academy. Well, he was, and he made a great decision on the 1st of April to join tourism full time. So he's joined it in the middle of the storm. But he's been touring with us for over a year and a half. So he's head of the Cape Wine Academy. So anyone training to be a sommelier, winemaker, Harry's involved with. He's a Cape Wine Master. He was the 101st Cape Wine Master ever, and there's now only 102. And as far as we know, he's the only touring wine master. So, and he's really sort of brought in the philosophy for how we do wine, and it opens up a lot of doors. So during lockdown, we've done over 30 now virtual wine tastings, and there's actually really, it's amazing. It's been one of the few virtual experiences which I've found that some of these virtual wine tastings have gone into my top wine tastings of all time. So I'll share a link with you afterwards, Jen, to his, it's called Story Cellars. And even if you haven't got the wine or you're not interested in wine, it really brings it home, the importance of a good story, and how that good story enhances the wine, enhances the experience, and it's the talking point that you take home with you. So if you're having some wine shipped home and you're having, you know, friends around, and you can tell these stories afterwards, and that's really what we focus on, because there's a lot of amazing wine regions in the world. So you get Napa Valley, Bordeaux, but with South Africa, I mean, on the, you know, it's very unique, the oldest wine growing region outside of Europe. So it's got a mix of old world and new world. And I'll let Matt go into it in more detail. Oh, thank you. Well, I just want to introduce you to Bella.
Hi, Bella. Hi.
Hold on. She said she's going to bed.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's really what makes going a day out in the winelands that more, so much more special. And so where Matt comes in is he's one of our guides, but he also does our guide training. So there's a well-known place, hotel in Cape Town called Ellerman House. It's one of the sort of top hotels, and it's definitely got the most impressive wine cellar. Matt used to work there, and so that's really, you know, came out from sort of a hospitality background and landed right in one of the top hotels, looking after, you know, I think one of South Africa's top wine collections. And for me, Josh, we've got a surfing sommelier, so another one of our guides who was a lawyer, came back, a young guy. He ran two tasting rooms in Constantia. So you've got these young people that know their wine really well, and that's really given me my energy for wine. We've got Charlene, one of the first lady winemakers. So we're known as a sort of an adventure and an experience company, but we take our wine really seriously. So I think on that, Matt, I might hand over to you. So Matt's also, him and Harry do the training. They pick the wine farms and sort of the way that we do our tours.
Yeah. So as Ingram was saying, it's a lot of the database of guides we have, they all got their speciality within stand-up paddling, surfing, oceanography, photography, and our kind of ethos is to kind of bring these really cool, fun, unique personalities or characters, give them an overall wine training, because everyone, you do it in your cultural guiding, you touch on a bit of wine knowledge, but not and you pass an exam, so it's very entry level. But then what we do is we take all these guys and we do focus training, wine training with them. So the nice thing is that, and it kind of, we have this philosophy about kind of it being a social tool, very much driven by what Harry's philosophy is it's kind of storytelling, it's bringing people together. So taking all these guides you can see on the screen here, and take to have very good sound knowledge, but also bringing out their character gives the wine tastings a unique spin. And our philosophy is kind of taking that kind of social kind of element back to wine tasting. You know, these guys are inventing wine in 6000 BC in Georgia. They weren't doing it to pick out wild gooseberries from Tahiti or anything. It was a social tool to sit around a fire, storytell, get the tongue a bit loose and engage. And I think the majority of guests on our tours as well, they 99% of the time, it brings out a kind of a sense of adventure, and that's what we kind of focus on. To encourage stories, and as Ingram was saying earlier, every wine country in the world is beautiful, unique, but we find that a lot of tours, they kind of focus very specifically on berry ripening. It's very technical, and you can lose, I'd say 60% of the tours we do are people who have an interest in wine. They're not necessarily wine funnies or aficionados. So having that flexibility to go very into detail on a wine tour, or to kind of lay it back and just storytell, is kind of what we aim to do. So it's putting that kind of emphasis on storytelling and creating unique experiences.
And in terms of South African wine, I mean, if it's quite yeah, I think that's something that one of the first hurdles. I'm from the UK originally, obviously close to France. Spent time with the wine farms there, and you get quite a bit of snobbery in the old world about sort of some of these warmer climate wines. But I mean, I don't know if you can put people's mind at rest, and because I think that's as soon as we've got over that, people then are realizing, well, this is, I'm tasting wine which I'd be spending $100 or $200 on in America, but I'm tasting it for 10 to 20 here.
Absolutely. I think it's great from a touring point of view. You guys still there?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. From a touring and booking point of view, it's great to have the guests back. Hello?
Yep, we're here.
Yeah. Sorry, I froze up there. Your internet connection is unstable. Africa.
We haven't lost you yet, so don't worry about it. Just keep talking.
I'll fill in, Matt, if you go, but we're not quite as knowledgeable as you.
No, but so anyway, so our kind of philosophy is about storytelling and bringing the uniqueness out of our terroir, and not everyone's this wine aficionado, so it's quite nice having just real people with unique backgrounds with good wine knowledge. It's taking guests on their tour, and it's from a booking perspective, it's always good to know if the agent and you guys have the first contact with guests, how their wine knowledge is. And it's great to be up front and say, listen, are you looking for a very intense wine tasting, or are you looking for a fun, informative, and entry-level thing into it? We train the guides and ourselves every morning to do a little brief, and we very quickly can gauge a family, a honeymoon couple, or solo travelers kind of wine knowledge. And so that's what we'll focus on. We'll sit down with them and meander it. So I would say the majority of people traveling to South Africa in our kind of spec, they're not the most clued up on wine, and they just enjoy it. They love it. And I think they engage more with the storytelling and meeting the people and the characters and the soil and the views and the wine than they do learning the ins and outs of when they get in that science behind it. You can very quickly lose someone like that.
I thought I'd give an example, Matt, of like where we went on Tuesday. So I am drinking, they're called Black Elephant Vinters. So Kevin and so the Kevin and Vluvu, which is elephants. So they were ex-bankers, and the Vinter, the wine, and the winemaker, and they've made this in Franschhoek, right off the main high street, and so they're making this incredible wine. So the one I've got here, I'll just show you. So I've seen it in the shops before, but then you go. So this is called Nicholas Red, and it's a tortoise on the label. And then I read the back, but I read it again, and it's basically about his teenage son. So he's made this wine. They've explained, like Nicholas, this wine takes longer to mature. It's sensitive and needs to be nurtured. There's a constant battle between the negative and the positive going on, and he will retreat harshly. He'll retreat into his shell if harshly treated. And it was so sort of fun listening to those stories. And then what they do is they pair it with the wine with music. So we've got you put on these headphones, and they'll, the wine that they've been making, what it meant to them, and it really brought in a whole new sense to wine tasting, and the whole thing as a character, is full of character. So it's very, very good wines, particularly in their sort of higher end. And I hadn't actually tasted the higher end range, and it was really quality. But then to sit there, and what I'll take away are the stories about the labels and the songs. So like the Pinot Noir is one of our sort of grapes that's known for being very complex and supposed to be hard to make. And they've really made this amazing Pinot Noir, but them being a bit outrageous, and they put it in a can rather than a bottle. And you open it, you're not expecting it to be particularly, being a, being out of a can, and they've done this so that if you're hiking, you can take it, you can take it away with you. And so the song that they had with that was Wham's Freedom. And then when you listen to the reason why they did it and where they went with it, I don't know if you can see this label here. So it's what they call an anti-label. So they've so many wines have these, when you go into the shops, they've got these sort of fancy crests on. And he's just written over the top of the crest, 2 dogs, a peacock, and a horse. And I was like, what is that? He said, no, it's very random. And it's got a very random thing at the back, but they're in Franschhoek. So you've got the Eiffel Tower there to represent, it's the French corner. So the French Huguenots came there first, but when you hold it this way, it's the South African flag. And then this is a Dutch gable from the main architecture of all the buildings in the area. So I just suddenly now, when I have this wine, I've got a story to tell people, and I just thought, because it's the wine I'm drinking this evening, it was quite a nice sort of example of where we go with it. So what I'm going to do is take you to some of the areas that we visit. So I'm going to start off, and I'll pass you across to Matt again. So the Constantia Valley is often overlooked. It's only 20 minutes from the center of Cape Town. It's halfway to everywhere we go in Cape Town. So if you're going to Cape Point, it's close. You can stay in. There's some amazing hotels. You can stay in the Constantia Valley itself, but it's actually the original. It's the oldest vineyards outside of Europe. So it's where the wine industry started. So I'll hand over to you, Matt, just to fill everyone a bit more on the Constantia Valley.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone has a hard time. I know when I was in the UK trying to sell Africans Cape Town trips, you wouldn't go near Constantia. It was too close to Cape Town. The winelands were always Stellenbosch, Franschhoek. It's a hard sell. I think even now it's a hard sell, but it's an incredibly amazing area. It's perfect for people who are guests who aren't in Cape Town long enough to venture out 2-3 hours drive each way to Franschhoek and Stellenbosch. And it's incredible. I mean, even on the way, you can fit it into city tours, peninsula tours, activity-based itineraries, and then with a cheeky wine tasting halfway through. Restaurant-wise, it's incredible. And as Ingram was saying, it's got some of the most incredible history. There's a famous story of Katarina Russ from Steenberg. I don't know if you guys have heard or been to Steenberg. For those listening, but so anyway, she's famous for, in a nutshell, she's famous for going through 5 husbands, and she kind of ups and leaves Germany after her first husband passes away mysteriously.
And this is in the 17th century, so I mean, this is
exactly.
Like
1660s. She comes here and she makes the treacherous journey down the boat, round the Cape, and soon finds that the Cape is, at that time in the 1600s, is not the land of milk and honey. So she snatches up a husband, and famous for the story goes that he was pulled off his horse by a wild lion after their wedding, and she jumps on side saddle into a horse, chases the lion, shoots him down, and hangs it as a trophy. So she's this very strong, probably like one of the most daring and controversial figures to enter the Cape. And anyway, she goes through a series of husbands, and there's a beautiful history. If you go to the farm, it's quite modern. I don't know if you got a photo there, Ingram.
I've got it up. I don't know. Can you see the?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's got this modern art, and it's glass, and it's beautiful, but it's got this old history. And this is just one story. You can go into millions of them, and you can see the swan on the right there, Steenberg. The original name of the farm was Svanveda, which means the feeding place of swans. And we don't know why, but potentially because of Katarina's love and nostalgia from her homeland in Germany, she saw these swans flying around the farm, and it reminisced her of home. So she names the farm Swan Veda. Turns out that these swans were actually what we call Egyptian geese, or a part of the goose family, which are not indigenous to Cape Town at all, and they're kind of pesty, and they're incredibly like a pest kind of bird, and they irritate all the golfers on the neighboring farm because they crap everywhere. But it's funny anyway. It's a funny story that they've kind of named this farm after a bird which never existed in Africa at all. But the story sticks, and Steenberg now today is just Stone Mountain, because it's under this beautiful kind of, I don't know if you know, Elephant's Eye, beautiful hiking spot, Stone Mountain. But it's just one of these regions which people pass on the way to Cape Point every single day. They hightail down to Cape Point and they go over one of the most beautiful tasting rooms in Cape Town. I think it's under the M3 highway. Super elite and family-run beautiful farm who just focus on the Sauvignon Blanc. But I mean, that's how underground the region is. People are just flying over the top of the tasting rooms, not even giving it a second thought.
Yeah, I mean, for me, as you've seen, I've actually got three. I've only seen two of them, but with three young children, and so this is, you've got the history of Constantia. They've got this sweet wine which was the Vin de Constance that a lot of people come for, and it really in that era is Napoleon's favorite wine, and he used to have it shipped to him wherever he was, and so you've got this history. But then on the higher hills, you'll see here, we had a big fire, and it allowed more agriculture to happen up the farm, up the hills. And we've got these amazing new farms. So if I just go back quickly here, you can see these are the farms I'm talking about now, where it says Constantia Neck and False Bay. That's the sort of the other side of Cape Town with this amazing ocean. So you get these cold sea airs that come up the mountain, these amazing views. And this is one of my favorite with children. They do you can go wine tasting, and it's right up on the hill, so the children can literally just run off, and they can only get so far before they roll back down again. When we're on our wine tours, we have a toy bag. Quite often the guides will then go. It's got sort of cricket sets and rugby sets, things that people from the US aren't as used to. So they're playing these local games in the vineyards.
Even this one, Ingram. So just around the corner, you got this Accra. Oh, there we go, Accra branch on the side.
Yeah.
You've got incredible hikes from Table Mountain into Constantia. So you can literally get the funicular or the cable car up. It's about a 3-hour, quite flattish walk, but it's beautiful. And you come down, you see the masters there just to the right, you come down into the Constantia Valley for at least 2 tastings and maybe some lunch. You've got mountain biking, everything, and you never 20 minutes from the city center. So it's incredibly vast and diverse, which is what, it's such an overlooked area.
So if you picture, this is the back of Table Mountain. And so where that guy is standing is, and I think this really surprises people, because you go up on the cable car and that's what everyone knows. Okay, this sort of flat part of Table Mountain, but there's an old railway and these dams right on top of Table Mountain. You can go for a swim, you can go for a hike up to them, and that's another thing with the wine day. So a typical day that we'll do would involve an activity in the morning, because you don't really want to be tasting wine 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. So an activity in the morning, the regions and the other ones that we'll go on to now are sort of, they're another thing I think makes our wineland stand out, is they're so beautiful, and with this mountain scenery in all of them. So depending on people's interests, so like Matt was mentioning, the hike there, the children's activities, and then we've had this explosion of art in Cape. Cape Town's a very sort of bohemian, arty place, but just in the last 5 years and 2 years in particular, we've had Africa's largest contemporary modern art museum, and this is another one actually right next to Steenberg, so you can see them, called Novor Foundation, which has got a lot of modern, but also some of our most important sort of recent sculptures in it as well, with a really big garden. So you've got this flexibility and to be able to do these things, and when people come, it doesn't need to be over planned. So we'll do one activity in the morning, we'll have an idea of what you want to do. Quite often, with you guys, we'll painstakingly put it together because you know your clients so well. But if people wake up in the morning or they've heard about something, part of Matt's training that he does with the guides is really to be able to say that you can build your own adventure on the day. The weather's better than we thought, or the weather's not as nice. We might spend more time in cellars today and really going sort of underground into the wine scene, or it's so beautiful we've got to get up Table Mountain. You didn't have a chance to do it yesterday. So the nice thing with our winelands and on the wine tours is the flexibility, and also Constantia. What it gives you is if the winelands isn't on someone's itinerary because they've only got 2 or 3 days in Cape Town, and then they've been on a safari and they've been tasting this amazing wine and hearing some of the stories, then Constantia being so close to Cape Town is something that we can sort of squeeze in with an impromptu sort of wine tasting, and it's something that that we our whole touring's built to have that flexibility to allow those changes. But I think the main area that is, that people do beeline for, it's about an hour to an hour and a half outside of Cape Town, is the sort of Stellenbosch and Franschhoek area. And again, I'm going to pass it over to you, Matt, because your Matt's on tour most days, although he's having a little bit of a long holiday at the moment. Just in terms of what Stellenbosch offers.
So if in the previous slides you saw Constantia being quite linear, so it's a great, every wine farm's got it's
all in a row.
Great, there's something great about every farm. So what's nice about Constantia, it's close to town, it's easy to pop in on a tour randomly or book a kind of behind the scenes tasting. You can add it into a day which doesn't have wine tasting. It's very easy to incorporate last minute into a day for a guide, and then equally so, you can spend 2 days there. So often overmissed. And if you go to Stellenbosch, Franschhoek similar in a way to Constantia, small, set up, linear. And then you go to Stellenbosch and you can see how many farms there. Over 300 producers. But it's one of those things, it's commercial. I mean, everyone knows it. But what we love about it is that there's more hidden gems in that 1 square photo than anywhere. So what we like to do here is, again, try to start off with an activity. It can be a light walk. It can be a mosey around the Stellenbosch town doing art. Kind of that judges.
Yes, I just put up the picture here of Jonkershoek. So this is a nature reserve that I'm actually going electric, because you can see it's quite steep. So I'm going electric e-biking this weekend with the family here. And I mean, it's just an amazing.
There's no better way to explain this to a guest or to anyone, whether they a sommelier or have no interest in wine, the terroir, or how we call the earth, or the gradient and the aspects. Then going for a walk or a zip line or a mountain bike in the actual winelands, and gauging a sense of their kind of wine knowledge and enthusiasm. Because I'd say
these ones in the middle are quite fun. So you can see they're big gravity scooters, and you can take the family on it. So that you basically go up in like a safari vehicle, and then you bomb down on the trails. And it's just a adult or child. It's just a great fun way of starting the day. And like, we can't help it but showing off about our wines, but in terms of Matt's talking a lot about the terroir, and what I've learned about is how important that is. There's an amazing Mullineux and Lou. Did I pronounce that right, Matt?
No.
No, okay. Pronounce it for me.
No. Mullineux and Lou, yeah.
Mullineux and Lou. So they do this amazing terroir tasting where they bring out the wines, and then they actually have the soils that go with it. But the reason why it's so important is our soils are some of the oldest in the, well, in terms of wine, they are the oldest in the world in terms of wine regions. But the Cape Fold Mountains that all these vines are growing on are some of the oldest mountains and soils in the world, and it really has an effect on the wine. And so just to start off in the mountains and you're out on a wine day, but it just amazes me. I don't know if I've got a picture of it on the next slide. No, I haven't. So it amazes me. Like Franschhoek is so visited, and we go up to Mont Rochelle at the back of the valley that looks down the whole valley, and it just, we're always the only ones there. And there's a hike. You can be 20 minutes or it can be 2 hours depending on which route you take. So it doesn't have to be hardcore. It's not for the overactive, and it just is such a nice way to start the day and get out into this amazing scenery. I've just put up another slide.
It can literally be a cultural kind of history walk through Stellenbosch town or Franschhoek town, or you got the scootering, or you've got the terroir tasting. Which kind of gives the guests this kind of 3D effect before they've even had a glass of wine. They have a better understanding of the regionality, the geography, the climate. So it is great. I mean, some guests prefer just to, pick me up at 8 and you start tasting at 9. Rock and roll, that's amazing. But it's incredibly family friendly. It caters to people who are really into wine, enthusiastic about wine, or not interested at all. Which is
on the left there, it's become very well known as Ambadestorren, and their gardens, and you've got Boschendel, which actually is the picture on the top right. Also, these amazing gardens, and then so you've got the garden side of things covered. The place on the bottom left with the children, that's this amazing place called the Tree House. And I took my son there as a 5-year-old, and Tracy, who was running it, said, well, what's the, because I was trying it out. I said, well, what's your ambition here? I said, well, basically I want to change your child's whole view on life. I said, we've only got him for 2 hours. And I came back and he's been a snail and a bug collector ever since, because basically you've got this amazing farm, and they've built this place called the Tree House, and that's these are shaped like acorns, but they take them out, they go around the farm where they collect eggs. And it's amazing how many people, particularly lived in cities all their life, their children haven't done that before. So they're collecting eggs, they're making they go around and collect everything, and then they cook it on a fire under close supervision, and like my son would only ever eat chicken nuggets or fish fingers, and then suddenly he's got this sort of scrambled egg thing in it. He's sort of proudly showing me and eating. So they really, and all that time, I was having a historical wine tasting because it's one of the oldest wine farms. So it's a that's just one of many of these type of experiences that goes on. I mean, the art Matt sort of touched on, but Stellenbosch itself is an old university town. Franschhoek is like we're not going to sort of show. Franschhoek's more of a village. It's really sort of one of these picture perfect villages. And what the difference is Stellenbosch, and it's actually en route, so they're only half an hour, 20 minutes apart. So with Stellenbosch, it's just lots of coffee shops, walking around, but it's got one of the main South Africa's main universities in the heart of it. So it's got this real vibe to it. And sticking to the art, I don't know, Jen, if you've heard of Dylan Lewis, or we had a chance to visit Dylan Lewis's sculpture garden when he was out here. You're on mute, but I can tell by the nodding that was a yes.
That picture, yes.
Yeah. So this is Dylan Lewis. If you didn't meet him, so we quite often bring him out. One way of getting there, and it's a very kind of this is a game where we like to do things differently. Is we've got permission to land, so we can sort of jump you straight out. You've got this amazing flight, starting off from Table Mountain over the ocean, and then out to the mountains in Franschhoek. So it's quite a way, rather than just do a helicopter flip. This is we call it's our sort of adventure helicopter option, where you hop. You either just do one transfer and you hop to a location. And this one we land in the middle of his sculpture gardens. And what I love about this is quite often, well, not often, nearly everyone when they're coming to Africa, it's for the wildlife. And so even if you're not majorly into art, Dylan's sculptures are very sort of animal-based, flow and movement in this most amazing setting. So again, it's sort of kind of starts you off on this day, and that's what we like, is to build a day where you're doing things which are a bit different. So
what works well about Dylan Lewis as well. I think it started out for very art-focused, orientated groups, families, or you've always got someone in the group which wants the art, someone who's very heavy on the wine. It's a great start, because it's his whole philosophy is how you're born this animal, you go through this kind of series in your life, and you start primal, and you end up you're an animal, and then how society molds you, and kind of the longer you go on, the more you get pushed into a pen. And it's about all of his sculptures are about breaking this cycle. And then it's quite great, because it's one of the few galleries that the kids are kind of encouraged to run riot. And as a birder, the birds are incredible. It sits right next to Friesenhof, which is kind of one of my favorite wine farmers, one of the most well-known red wine producers in the area. But it's just a great way also to start a tour. So if it's a family or whoever, whether they're into art or not, it's just this sculptured garden, and you can literally take anyone there and whatever interest, and it blows their mind.
Yeah, and I think looking at Dylan, I don't think he's let age put him in a cage. No. he's still pretty wild. But I think, yeah. So now what we're going to do is like basically take you on what a wine tour might look like. So we've gone into the mountains, or we've gone to the art, or we've gone to the Dylan Lewis's garden, or we've gone for a stroll around Stellenbosch, and we'll have a number of stops in mind. So we don't like to do more than 2 or 3 vineyards in a day. And we can do more. Like I said, there's 300 to choose between, and a lot of them are very close. But it's because it's running into a tasting room where you're queuing up with other people on holiday for a quick tasting with someone who might be a student and that type of stuff. It really doesn't do the wine any justice. So the idea is to spend a bit more time at less wine farms that are really interesting. And so what Matt, and it took me a while to to get my head around this, and I was like, Matt, let's work with less wine farms and get really good signature experiences at them. And Matt was always stressing this idea of having a flow to the day, where you can from a conversation at one wine farm, you can then pick where you go for the next one. Because people don't even know what they're interested in before they arrive, and that's really what we leave up to the guides. But what we like to do is get a contrast of places. So Harry, who I mentioned about earlier, so he is Harry Melk, this is our sort of touring wine master. So he's got us a great introduction here. We always used to use Marathi as a favorite farm, but this is actually his family's farm that they've been on since 8 generations, and that's his cousin Rake. So I'm gonna Matt, I think this is a good, and that's Harry there, not looking too happy actually in the right hand corner, but they're in the family dining room there. It's a real treat.
So definitely, I mean, from a booking point of view, it's always great to have the guests' interest, whether they're super into white or if they don't like white at all. And then some of these things can be, if they have slim knowledge and they don't touch Chardonnay, part of the ABC group, anything but Chardonnay, it's sometimes quite fun for the guide to kind of do them a blind tasting somewhere, and then kind of like expose them to a bit of something different, and get them out of that. So whatever info we get before it's great, but we initially sit down with the guests and we get an idea of what they're feeling, how everyone's feeling, if it's a group, if it's a family, a honeymoon couple. We put certain bookings in place, so we'll have kind of a behind the scenes, or you kind of meet the maker or someone influential on the wine day. We'll always try and include somewhere, one of our stops, that the guests get a real Q&A with someone who knows what they're talking about. I find, it's the big farms, the well-known big farms with big advertising and steel glass, they employ waiters, incredibly well trained, and it's not to take anything away from them, but they're all trained on tasting notes. So it's always white, rosé, red, white, rosé, red, white, rosé, red. And then it's kind of rehearsed. It's beautiful. People, you know, that's what I think a lot of people expect in a wine tasting. And people want that flow. And it's very easy as a guide to keep on that track. The other way to go is to kind of take them to these places where you can do those traditional tastings as well. But you got the history and this quirky story where you can meet the Rake Malk, who every wine bottle is an ode to a previous owner of the farm. And this thing, you know, it dates back to the 1600s as well. Lawrence Camphor, which we Pinotage. I don't know if any of you heard of Pinotage. It's a famous South African grape. We're very proud of it until the Americans and Napa made a better one, which we don't like to talk about. But anyway, so it's Pinotage was made it there. So it's got a lot of history, and it's quirky. You can see in the top left, you got all these cobwebs. So one of the owners, before it went back to Rake Malk, one of the non-negotiables of the handover of the inheritance was that they weren't allowed to do any changes to the farm. They weren't allowed to. It was a listed building, a listed property. Even the vines were listed, and they took it very seriously. And you can see the cobwebs here date back over 40 years, and they literally left it. So these are dead cobwebs. They're not crawling with spiders or anything. They're beautiful.
It makes such a talk because basically the Melks owned the farm and then it went out of their family, and then Rake had a chance to get the farm back again, and it's still got the calendar up from the date where she said you mustn't change anything. And so it just makes such a
and you take
story.
you take a honeymoon couple here, and you know the missus is a bit like, oh my gosh, you know, but then you tell them a story about how Lawrence Camphor used to walk 3 days to Cape Town.
So explain who Lawrence Camphor was, because I mean I love this story. It's it's a wine that.
So he was one of the owners, and he fell in love with then a slave girl. Who, I mean, it's a beautiful story and it goes on, but basically he fell in love with the slave girl, and every week he would go 3 days to Cape Town to meet her.
So this is walking, because he didn't have, he was a German soldier, so he didn't have much cash.
No, so he was
he was
the family before it went out of the family into the family, and he makes walking, no horse and cart, 3 days to get to Cape Town. He visits her for a day, and he makes a trip back. And he does this for years. I think it was like over 5 years, or longer. And one of this wealthy dames hears about the story, and long story short, she allows the slave freedom, and she's emancipated. They walk back to the farm, and on their wedding day, they plant an oak tree. And you can visit the oak tree today. It stands huge. It's one of the largest oak trees in Stellenbosch. But it's just a great visual. It's got this romance about it, this kind of over a long story. And when you're there under this oak tree, looking at Table Mountain in the distance, you can see the honeymoon couple start to cuddle up against each other and like remember their day. And you take them into the tasting room, which on the bottom left is an old wine vat. They've knocked out some walls as windows, but that's the old prehistoric way of maturing and cellaring wine. And then on the bottom right, you can see in Rake's house, he's got a lung table they call it in Afrikaans, and they do traditional farm style set menu, kind of family sharing style menus, and it's incredible. He sits at the head of the table, and he's a historian. He's learned all about it. He's studied everything, and you can Q&A him, and then Anna Marie, who comes out, she's this old Cape Coloured farm worker who's been working with the family for years, and she serves you the dinner, and then she does a tasting on the rosé because they've named the rosé after her, and it's got all these elements of history and romance, which is incredible, and it normally wins people by the end. Yeah, it's amazing.
And then just to show the contrast. So this is the wine. So Rake, his wine farm has inspired me immensely. And this is one of those wine tastings that I did a virtual wine tour on. I've met him a number of times. Sorry, Johan.
Johan, yeah.
And I think in this time that we've been through, it was matching a wine to the values of yourself, or in this case, as a company. And his wine is the wine I've chosen for our company. He's, he was called Biodynamic, but basically he was a farm laborer back in the apartheid days. And so you wouldn't have many white farm laborers, and he was having to obviously to put the pesticides on the fruit trees he was looking after at the time. But then he got a managerial job, and sort of a long story short, he ends up becoming a winemaker. And through the sort of the 80s and 90s, I mean, he really put his whole business and reputation on the line, taking these vines through cold turkey. And coming up with new techniques which are being used today to grow this most amazing, this most amazing wine, and he's really sort of dedicated his life to it. And plus the way that he treats his workers, so they're like family. It's one of the cornerstones of what he does. I know it's one of your favorite, Matt.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. He's a character. So it's farms like these. They compete on the same level, if not higher than, your Delegraphs and your Spears. They're smaller family-run farms, and you can meet, like I'd say 7 times out of 10, we can try and organize the winemaker or someone influential under them. And it's great because you take guests there. I mean, I know it's big in the States, Germany. Biodynamic wine is massive, and maybe 30% of people love it because it's sustainable and everything, but they don't know what is it. What's the difference between organic and biodynamic? And you take them to the farm, and Johan will walk with you, and he'll show you the mealybugs underneath, and how this pest is actually good for the vines, and how the vines go back into the mealybugs, and how you can make kind of a humus soil out of cow horn. And it's incredible, and it gets everyone it's very tangible. But so by the time you've left the farm, probably barefoot, holding the earth in your hand, going back to the tasting room, everyone's kind of like in awe of how this farm uses nothing from outside of the farm to make their wine. Absolutely nothing comes in from outside of the farm. Everything from the containers to the chemicals. They don't use any of it, but they use kind of chemical replacements. So it's incredible, and the kind of education you see guests go through on a farm like this is massive.
Yes, I think that it was really I hope that gives you a bit of a picture. What we wanted to do was share the regions, but rather than just talk about the regions, the style of wine, but basically some of the stories that we touch on, and some contrasting stories, and give you an idea of that activity in the morning, 2 wine farms, but then allowing you to build your own day. Because there's 600 farms in total, 300 just in this region. And the knowledge of Matt and his team, I mean, for them, the excitement is to be able to, I mean, one of my gems is my vine. So my wine. She's won the best Cab Franc, a lady winemaker. Doesn't actually own any vines herself, and her house is right on the top of the Franschhoek Valley, looks over all the grapes, and her husband used to be an auditor for the grapes. So he goes, well, I know that aspect would grow the best Chardonnay grapes. I know that would grow the best Cab Franc, etc. So she's making this amazing wine, but when you go there, it's quite steep and hard to get to, so no coaches can get there, and not very many people know about it. But should normally just do a tasting if you did stumble across the place, but because we've been quite a few times, Josh, who I mentioned earlier, our surfing sommelier, is almost treated like their son because he's so passionate about their wine. So we would grab a few bottles and then walk up to this waterfall. And again, it's only a 20-minute walk, but it's that for me it's quite often impromptu. You've got the right people, they're going to appreciate this, they're going to want to go for a walk, and just to end a wine tasting day, literally tasting wine, and as you go onto a new glass, throwing it into the stream, are very relaxed, and I think that makes sort of our Cape Winelands stand out. And these guys, like Johan here. This is Ken Forrester, Rake from Marathi. They've had this freedom being in Southern Africa they've got great wine knowledge, but we call them the crazies. They've stepped out and done things differently. They've all got these sort of stories where they're making fantastic wine, but with not conforming to any particular book, and it just makes it so much more interesting. So I mean, that's really, I don't know if you've got anything to add, Matt, but I think that sort of gives you hopefully an overview of the winelands from a storytelling perspective.
To finish from typically wine tastings anywhere in the world you go, it's kind of set, structured. You have an appointment, you go. These 4 winemakers we've shown you here are just 4 of a few, and there's different types of guests. Guests who want to go through that whole thing. But if you guarantee you take the majority of the time you're going to these big, well-known farms, which is easy. It's you walk in, you book your tasting, you go in, you do the thing. We often visit it, but you can still do their flagship tasting. We'll go in, we'll pay for the tasting, but we'll go in and we'll maybe do a Chenin tasting. Just give me your kind of entry-level Chenin and your flagship Chenin. Boom, taste it. Massive contrast. The guests actually engage. They're not just like nodding and saying yes to everything you're saying. They can actually see the difference. And then we can get a feel for that farm and move on to the next one. So there are, as Ingram says, you can do a series of more farms, but we definitely, time tells that guests they leave remembering the stories, the views, the character of these farms. And so obviously the knowledge that we get from you guys beforehand is incredible. And then in the day we go through checkpoints and we suss the family out to see, are they into the kind of stainless steel diamonds and like clinical tastings, or do they prefer the historical tastings? Are they into the gimmicky, like the chocolate and wine pairing, the music and wine pairing? It's very easy to kind of to guide in the wine.
I think there's sometimes you have to go to these flagship farms, and we've got, Matt's being very careful not to mention the names, but they're still Delagraph, Takara, not so much beer, but Lamotte. They are amazing, and they've got this wow factor. But it's mixing it up. And quite often, if we've got people for a few days, we know whether we have to go there or don't have to go there. But if we're just doing a one-day wine tour and Takara's on the list, or Delagraph will definitely go there, and it's all pre-booked, and it's going to. But it's then picking the contrast of then going to see Rake with his three dogs called Led Zeppelin, Bon Jovi, and and that it's interesting to see when people buy their wine, the stuff that they're going to send home. It's those ones with the stories that they're buying and sending home, rather than necessarily the big name wines, because there's much more of a connection. I don't know if you've got any questions. Unmute.
Great, thank you so much. I do agree. I think that when our clients get back, they always tell us about the experiences that weren't like the big name wineries that they go visit. It's the smaller companies that do have the story, and then they have their wine that they take home and have shipped home that they can talk to their friends about and remind them of stories of when they were in South Africa. So I think that's great.
Yeah, no, it's something we're proud of, because the Escape and Explore, we started it in 2014, and the whole idea was to complement a safari. I felt that wasn't being done. Everyone was just thinking wildlife when they thought of Africa, and there's so much more. And that was, so I sort of took the step from being a tour operator myself to starting this experience business. And the idea really is we've taken safari training. So we've got the people, Jessica Fender sort of gave Matt the basis to the training that he does, and it's taking that. I mean, she just thought, if you think about rangers that you might have met on safari, and that their knowledge is immense, and it's just what they know about animals. But when you set off in the morning, the excitement is you don't know what you're going to do that day, or you don't know what you're going to come across, because you can't line up the animals. It's just sort of like what's going to be around the next corner. And Cape Town, we've got that ability to do that as well. So yes, it needs to be organized. And that's why we have this big team. But the reason why we have the big team is because we do a lot of unorganizing during the day as we're rebooking things and changing them, because it's so great for people to feel like they're part of this adventure. They hadn't really probably thought too much about, or they had a preconception of what Cape Town was going to be like. And then once they've just been here for half a day, or spoken to people when they're on safari, or between booking the holiday and arriving, there's a whole load of advice that has been thrown their way. And so I think it's really refreshing that while everyone else is jumping in to run out and explore on the day, we actually get a map out and we sit down just for 15 minutes, but sit down. So this is where we're going. Is there, yeah, and just to slow it down, find out what makes their eyes light up, because often people are quite polite, so they're sort of, yeah, like, okay, that's good, yeah, that is what I booked. But you can tell, if you say, well, now we're going to go stand up paddling with penguins, and then you see the sort of nervousness, or you get a feeling that maybe they had a really big night on their last night of safari, and the last thing they want to do is go on another wine tour. They could do that the following day. So that gives us the time to, and the amazement. I mean, well, you must experience it, Matt, on a daily basis when what should be simple, but just to be able to say, no, you can change that completely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's always great as a guide getting, Mr. Smith loves sparkling wine and champagne, and Mr. Smith is more of a brandy drinker and doesn't like, and the kids are hyperactive. And then it gives us it makes the guide's brain stick and be like, okay, we've booked this X, Y, and Z. We've got a private tasting here and we've got lunch here, but it's not going to work for this family because of traffic's here, or actually that's too far away and they don't want to spend time in the car. And then sitting down with them with a map saying, okay, guys, listen, this is the itinerary, and then this is where we can change it. Giving them that freedom to explore themselves. And then, I'd say the first half of the day is generally following the itinerary, lunch, and then everyone's relaxed, and then we pull out the stops with the randoms. And that what helps, having the back of house team, saying, listen, guys, the old girl's feeling a bit, under the weather, so she's going back, or we're doing a split and someone's doing art and we're taking them on a wine tour. It changes so much on a day. So whatever information, kind of no matter how bizarre, I always tell guys, if it's, as specific as still sparkling water, it makes a huge difference. Yeah.
No, and it's and I think that's the other thing, is that afternoon, quite often some of our best experiences, we can't market because we can't always guarantee that a certain person's going to be there. Or like there's this painting Pig in Franschhoek, so he's called Pig Casso, and he paints pictures, and he's selling them for like thousands of dollars. It's one of Swatch's most popular swatch recently was one that he's painted, and it's something that you wouldn't necessarily put on an itinerary because it's a little bit random, but then with the right family or with the right, you've got to come and meet Picasso, and it ends up being the whole highlight. But there's a lot of that. I mean, Matt's little gems, like the tasting that you mentioned in Constantia, which is literally under the highway. There's High Constantia. There's all these little tastings that you can do that we don't want to sort of ruin it by having it in the itinerary, and also complicate it by explaining every single thing that we do. So we have some signature stuff, but the afternoons are really where we can have quite a bit of fun doing the walks up to the waterfalls and that type of thing.
Love it.
Brilliant.
I love the flexibility. I think that's key. I think clients don't always know what they want, and they especially don't realize what it's going to be like when they go on safari, and then maybe Cape Town's after and they're exhausted and they had no idea. So I think
because
this is key.
This is what the back of one of our vehicles looks like. So, sort of the key to flexibility. So we've got cool boxes, we've got stand-up paddle boards, hiking packs, toy bags, a whole gourmet pantry. So quite often people end up, going, we're having so much fun, let's not go to lunch. And so we have a whole gourmet pantry on board. And this is standard on every tour, because you may not need, or the people may not seem to you, or they may not even know themselves, like they're going to do anything too active like stand-up paddling, and they're going on a wine tour. But then on the day, if it's just such a beautiful day and let's go to the Cape Peninsula, and we've got it all on board, so you can be doing something very, very different. And all of this stuff on board also allows us to do, we've got specialty teas, we've got gins. So, after a whole day's wine tasting, it's sort of like we've kind of pretty much done enough, and then we can stop in an amazing place and do a gin. I think it's quite sort of traditional in Africa at sunset to have a gin in hand. So, and that's all on board, and it allows us to put that all together. So the idea is it's still got to, you want to be learning stuff, but it's still got to be fun. It's a holiday,
and
it needs to be really fun after what we've all been through.
And it's funny because everyone refers to it as the winelands, but there's so much more than just wine. It's food, it's art, it's everything's. And a lot of these farms as well, they advertise as family friendly, and then you get there and they've got like one jungle gym which is rotten and maybe put up 25 years ago. So we also carry these kind of engaging tools. A lot of it's for kids, just to keep them engaged, so family can mum and dad can separate and actually take a breath. And it's
actually one of the best. Yeah, talking as and Matt's a new, well, not even that new a dad anymore, Matt. So you've got two young ones. So I think that's why you're so eager and staying up late and talking away. It's like at this time of night, it's like a free wine drinking session. But they, the winelands are amazing with families. Each wine estate has got all this land, all this play area, and so we don't need to pick out. Like you'll see people say that they do a milk and cookie tasting at this place, or those sort of things you don't need, because you can go to there's one Lalude, amazing sparkling. So we're not allowed to call it champagne, Escape+Explore wine, and you go in and like my children are a bit hyperactive. Comes from their mum's side, I'm sure. But you go in and there's china. You got all these sort of it's champagne and tea and glasses, and it's like a parents' worst nightmare. But it doesn't mean if they love their champagnes and it's such a cool place to go, the parents can go in and do their amazing tasting, and then we'll be they've got this amazing lawn and in the vineyards, and we can be doing bug hunting. We've got a whole like I said, the wildlife and the bird life, and one of those bags at the back of that vehicle is a toy bag of outdoor toys. So we don't let it sort of restrict us. I mean, I can't think of a wine farm that isn't fun for the kids to play in. There's plenty that I wouldn't let them go indoors for, Telegraph being one of them. But on the outdoors, just having real fun. And then places like Marati that we showed you there, the old places with the cobwebs. I mean, the owners are so relaxed, and they're family people themselves. So you feel really comfortable. They can just run wild. So we're talking away, and we've finished our day, and I know you've got yours to get to finish off and get on with. So we'll let you get on unless you've got any more questions.
So do you have that slide with the guides that you have, because you have a bunch of guides with a lot of great specialties, and maybe just touch on that a little bit.
Yes, I've got this broken into two normally, but if I so where I met Jen was at a place called We Are Africa, and two slides here we're very proud of. So they only do every year 5 awards. We won best. We were the first. I suppose I'll have a sip of wine actually to celebrate. We were the first company, first non-wildlife company to win best experience in Africa in 2016. And this year we've just found out, well, they've only announced 3 of the categories, and we've been nominated out of 5 companies for 2 of them. And one of them, so you can see Yandi here, the recycled art and uplifting designs. So we have 20 guides, which I'll tell you a little bit now, but we also have hop-on storytellers, people that are specialists. They wouldn't be with you all day. There may be people we visit, or they come and join you for the day. So Harry, the wine master, you don't need him when you're going. So you take Matt knows his wine really well, but if you've got people that love their wine, then you would have Harry come as well for that one day, because he's got this sort of deep knowledge. So Yandy is part of our uplifting experiences that we've just won engaged after. Well, not won, we haven't won, hopefully we'll win, we've been shortlisted for. So these are uplifting experiences, basically going to meet people. I call them social entrepreneurs, people that are uplifting their local community. And I think after everything, this has always been a passion of ours, and now it's really important. Like going back to Johan, the winemaker, who's sort of really, doing stuff on principle. So Yandy collects plastic off the beaches, and she's holding there, and it's a cow head that she's made out of the plastic she's made on the beaches. She has, rather than leave the informal settlement or township that she lives in, she's built herself a 2-story house and has 52 children go there every day. So she's been in Vogue, Elle, on CNN. I'm actually going to be doing a fireside chat with her on the 31st of August. So Jen is part of We Are Africa. So it's, me and her are talking about her story. It's remarkable. So we go and meet these people, and there's a number of uplifting experiences that we do. On the second row, there's a rock girl and future African leader. So she's in a black t-shirt saying Brave. So that's their brand, Brave. They are now, so Leanne, they're now in the early 20s, and we have got them a house and an apartment in a nice area of Cape Town. They come from a place called Manenberg, which is very sort of gangster driven, where we met them when they were 14, they're now 20. None of them were expected to pass their equivalent of, I don't know what it is in the US actually, but matric here, A levels in the UK. They weren't expected to pass school. Basically, lots of teenage pregnancy, lots of female violence and that type of stuff. And these girls are amazing. From the age of 14, they have sort of formed a group. There's a lady from New York who came here as a civil rights lawyer in the 80s. India, so she started this group called the Rock Girls, and basically they support each other. And so we've been training them since they were 14-year-olds to be guides. So most of them can't swim, and they can now surf. They can ride. They couldn't cycle. They can now take people on mountain bike trips. They've done all the training that Matt does. They join our training days, and so one of them, Audrey, has just been selected as one of 5 Africans under 25 in the Rise Africa Awards. So that was another one that we're really proud of. So these are the hop-on storytellers. So you can have a rock girl join your tour for the day, and they've become good tour guides. They've got this remarkable story, and although it comes from a hard background, it's a very uplifting story. And the way that they naturally tell it, we haven't asked them to do it that way, is uplifting. So Misha, who we dreamed of being one of our head guide, basically sort of took one look at travel and said no thanks, and she wants to be a sort of a lawyer or a TV presenter or a news presenter. And she's just come back from the African Leadership Academy, where only from 52 African countries, only 200 sort of people get into it to start off with. And so she's just come back from us. These girls are remarkable. So they're our hop-on storytellers. And then the other guides, to give you some examples. So Josh, the surfing sommelier, we spoke about him there. So he's kind of got life right. So he qualified as a lawyer, went to the UK, went, no, this is not for me. Came back, became a sommelier, ran 2 tasting rooms, but he's an outdoors guy, surfing obviously one of them, and so now he's managed to combine with the work he's doing now as one of our guides, to do both. Donovan on the music front, but Nikita's the 8-time South African surfing champion. The fine art award-winning author Leanne, so she's again young enough to be on party terms with the curators at nearly every single art gallery, but has written two books, one of them award-winning on reasonably recent African art, South African artists. So it's just we pick people that don't just know their stuff, but also have an interesting background. The lady with the camera there, if you've seen Blue Planet 2, there's a seal, the front cover. So she was a marine biologist, a director for BBC. Met her boyfriend, who's in the bottom corner surfing a big wave there, telling him to get closer to big white shark, great white sharks out of a cage. That's how they met. So she was above giving him directions, but the two of them shot the front cover of Blue Planet 2. But they're here and just love, they're people that have got a passion for sort of touring. And again, before we started Escape and Explore, it was more a Cape Town guide was someone who had a cultural guiding qualification and could tell you about the history and everything. What we've tried to do is create our equivalent of safari rangers, people, and they're all trained in everything from wine to wildlife. And it's for me, it's been really rewarding to see, because you see these guys that maybe are deep sea divers and that type of stuff suddenly really getting into their wine and then getting passionate about it, because we live here and we've got the mountain, we've got the ocean, we've got this amazing history, and winelands on our door. So it's quite a for this guiding team and putting it together, it's really fun for us to be doing what we're doing.
If I can just put my two cents in there, is I think what's quite unique is when we started this guide academy, and it basically involves getting everyone together that was in our core team of guides, and you had big wave surfers to wine masters to professional safari guides, and you think, geez, they can only get like 10 to 15 people onto a bus talking about wine and ocean currents and altitude, and it's like, it's either going to go pear shapes and everyone's going to like completely log heads, or it'll be and we wanted to create this team, and that's exactly what we've done. Is so everyone on here cross trains with each other. So we do specific wine days where someone with a background not so strong in wine has in-depth current wine knowledge, or someone who's not so into oceanography and currents or marine life is put onto a day where they learn up-to-date current statistics on marine life and local knowledge. And then so what it does is, one way is the knowledge is incredible, the knowledge sharing is nuts. We have themed days, but it's just the amount of knowledge flowing around and training, because everyone gets on. The second thing that's great about it is that when we often have two guides on a guest trip, whether it's a larger group or there's budget for two guides and a driver guide, so you've got two people now leading a trip, which are friends, they've worked together, they've trained together, there's good banter. And sometimes what could happen in the past previously is that you'd get companies putting a driver and a guide on, and then the driver says, let's go right at the R44, and the guide says, no, it's got to go this way. And then there's a whole thing, and someone says, Jan van Riebeck landed here in the 1600, someone says 1605, and it's like, and it makes it this awkwardness. So what we do is we create this kind of friendship, professional friendship and knowledge sharing, which kind of just automatically gets spread to the guests. And I think it's a unique selling point from our point of view, having kind of such a broad training session and kind of friendship group on our tours.
Yeah, you'll never get a guide. So that's why quite often there's two, you don't need to ask for it. There's quite often two guides on a lot of the trips, because a guide will go for over 6 months as a kind of an apprentice, even if they've got lots of experience, because we've got this, it's not a pressure we've put on ourselves, but we work exclusively through Jen and companies that know their stuff, and so we don't work with the general public. But also what that means is we can't let you down, and we can't make one mistake, because you won't come back again. And so that's why we put a lot of emphasis on that. So the guides, we don't just bring in freelance guides that they've all done their time, and we know we know what they're capable of, and they've got all the key elements. So we wouldn't, they've got, you can't just say, well, you're just going to do a wine day, because Cape Town, the weather changes, the people, like I say, the people have different opinions. We want to be able to say, no, you can do whatever you want today, and as a guide, they're going to be able to cover it. So yeah, so it's been a sort of rewarding process, and over this time, our guides. Sorry, we are keeping you very late now, but our guides have been remarkable. So we obviously haven't got any. We haven't got any guiding to do. Because it's only business travel that's allowed at the moment, and we're almost exclusively international. But we've been in the first 3 months. Matt was very much involved with it, and 5 other guides. But they delivered over 100,000 sandwiches. I mean, think about that: 100,000 sandwiches. And that's not an exaggeration. That we were taking them into 5 places because families overnight lost all income. And there's a hand-to-mouth way of living. There's no benefit system for the majority of people. So they're like the front right. They've been the front line, and without probably one of the hardest hit within the travel industry. And these guys, without even thinking about it, and still, I mean, we had Mandela Day, where it's Mandela's birthday, and you do 67 minutes. For your local community, and I think it was 1,000 liters. So Nikki Gibbs, so she's not in one of the pictures, but she was used to be chef for Paul McCartney for 2 years, Elton John, David Bowie. She had this sort of stint of being the private chef around people's European road shows, and then Paul McCartney took her for 2 years. But they made 1,000 liters of soup, and then the guides delivered it into the township. And what's nice now is where we're going, where Mama Yandi is, and that type of stuff. We're already well known there, but our vans that you saw there, we've taken all the seats out, and they've become food transporters. And so now when we run through it, it's like there's a big celebration. So twice a week we're going in there, delivering this food. And Mama Yandi up on the top there. Go onto our social media and take a look. I mean, she has gone from making plastic art and supporting 52 children. And anyone who's grown, I mean, I've seen sort of the way Jen runs her business, and anyone who runs a business and tries to grow a business knows how hard it is. She went from feeding 52 children to 1,080 within 2 weeks. So she accommodated 5 kitchens. I mean, this is in 2 weeks. 5 kitchens. We delivered 80 kilograms of vegetables that a restaurant couldn't use because of our lockdown, because you weren't allowed to go to restaurants. And she made that feed 500 somehow, sort of like I'm not sure how. But then off the back of that, she said, right, okay, get me more. And so, now she's got people filling trolleys in supermarkets and all sorts. And she's, so they every day, they start at 7 in the morning and they cook till 12. This is 5 days a week, and they're all volunteer mums. And then they go and serve it in the pouring rain, sun, doesn't matter. Serve it on 5 different street corners around the township, and then they wash it all up, and then they start again the next day, completely voluntary. It's amazing. So these guys have really sort of used their time well. It's been rewarding. I know we've had some fun doing it, but it's been amazing to see. And I think that's the kind of thing, like the good news stories that are coming out of this. And I think because of this award with the uplifting experiences, we're sort of we're putting a bit more on our social media about it. We've tended to kept quite quiet about it in the past, but now I'm blown away with what's happening, and it's making a really positive story, because you've got 2 very different communities that are now working together, and I think that's what South Africa is about. I mean, there is so much diversity and so much contrast that quite often you do see a negative side of it, but what we're seeing a lot of is this sort of this positive side. I've never spent so much time in the township as I have over this time, and it's actually, I mean, would you agree, Matt? It's been pretty uplifting. Whilst people have been without food, and that you can see everyone supporting each other, and people turning their houses
Yeah,
into soup kitchens.
It's been great. It's also given us guides like, time to catch up and cross train. We're still doing the training throughout the lockdown. We're doing online kind of Zoom chats like this, where each guide has a chat about something new, and then we present something which maybe we've never got to guide before, or a social experience, like kind of a social thing we've been doing in a different kind of community. No, there have been some good positives from it. We just can't wait for you guys to start sending us some Americans.
Yeah.
We're working on that.
Now, how's it there? I mean, it must be. I mean, you're doing local travel obviously now.
Well, we were starting to pick up a little speed on some domestic stuff, which we don't normally do a lot of. I don't anyways. But it was picking up drivable stuff, short flights. I think lately though, a lot of rules are changing. So it's become a little bit more challenging, and people are kind of pausing on that too. So we're waiting to see, hopefully things will kind of pick back up soon as what we're hoping for, right guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's made it quite easy. Well, not easy for us, but we know that we're probably looking towards the end of the year now, and so it's kind of we kind of sort of tighten the belt, and now just working. It's like I'm so excited about what you're going to see coming out of here. So we do the day trips, but we're going to be, when we set up as an exploration, and doing these sort of 3 to 5 day trips. We did the first stand-up paddle through the Okavango Delta, this really good and out there different stuff. And so that is what we're going to be doing a lot of work on. We've kind of been working on all our day touring, and now we're moving on to that. So we're going to have some very interesting and quite out there stuff. And it's not hardcore, but just stuff that people, I think, sort of bucket list, and I think that's what I feel that people are going to be looking for. I mean, people, particularly with budgets to spend, is like, I don't want to go and do. I don't want to tick a list anymore, or do something just to put it on Instagram. I want to do something that really is out there and a bit different and meaningful. So that's where that's what we're working on. And and as a guide group, oh my goodness, I mean, where you can see from these people on the screen here, I mean, there's just so many ideas. They're like, get me out. I want to go. There's Santa Maria and Principe, the Chocolate Islands. We want to go and do something here, and all these sort of, Africa is very much pioneering. There's a possible. You can still be a pioneer travel-wise here, which is not many places in the world you can still do that. So that's what we'll be coming out to you with later on. I'm not going to make any promises, but it will probably by October. I'm not putting myself under any pressure, but it's going to be good.
Well, we'll certainly check back in with you then. I mean, I love that you're coming up with new and creative ideas during that time where there's a pause. And I know our clients aren't stopping traveling. None of them have said that. There's a whole lot of talk of like, wait and see. We want to feel comfortable. We want to know what's happening. So I think a lot of it is when they feel safe again, and maybe we get over all of this, I think there's going to be a lot of demand for last minute travel.
Yeah.
2021, I think people are going to wait as long as they possibly can until they feel like, oh my gosh, I have to book now, or I won't be able to book anything. That's what's going to start happening.
Yeah, I think that's we're kind of getting ready for that. And I think the nice thing is here, because they have been so strict, when they do open the borders, they really are doing it like that. It's not like they're doing it knowing that they're just being super strict. Mm-hmm. So and quite responsible in what they're doing.
I think the nice thing about the Western Cape and Cape Town as an add-on to Safari is you've got alternative ways of doing bucket list stuff. So everyone wants to do Table Mountain, but there's at least 5 different ways you can experience Table Mountain away from a crowd, or Cape Point. We can. I mean, that's what we've been trying to do since we started. Is doing this kind of private, exclusive, excluded travel, but but you're still getting the vibe of an atmosphere. So like, one thing we've been trying to do for a while is in busy peak seasons is instead of doing Cape Point Nature Reserve, we do the other peninsula. We do Stony Point, which has also got penguins, Harriet Poulter Gardens, wine farms, incredible whale watching, and there's no one on it, which is the beautiful thing. You can spend, I think down the line, guests might be, they might want one specific guide throughout their Cape Town trip, and know that they're going to kind of very off the beaten path stuff, but also places which they're not going to be exposed to crowds and hordes of people and queues and, anything.
Yeah.
Which we hate anyway, so that's
yeah, exactly. So now, we can finally guide somewhere else.
Well, great. I mean, it's all about the guides. I'm telling you, it's the whole experience. So you can be doing the same city with 2 different guides and see it in a whole different set of eyes and a whole different experience. So we'll definitely be looking at you guys next time.
Brilliant. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for having us on and listening to us. We've overrun quite drastically.
No worries.
That's your fault for not stopping us. And Matt actually doesn't live far from me, but I would invite myself around, but I've got my pajama bottoms on under here. I look a bit strange walking through the neighbourhood. A little behind the scenes secret for you. I've got my
I don't think it's much of a secret anymore with everybody. All right. Well, great. Thanks so much again, and I love seeing you guys. Hopefully, maybe one day you'll come visit us in Naples. If not,
definitely. So don't put an offer out like that because it won't get turned down.
Do it. Anytime.
Yeah. No, we'll be there. I'm as much as we're loving being here on the peninsula, we do need to get out as well. So
I think after this, when borders open again, I think all of us guides are going to be going through our contact list with guests who have said, come visit me, come. We'd be like, yeah, it's been like 2 years or 6 months, but does this still stand? I'm outside.
Brilliant. And come and sorry, I've never even asked Brittany and Irene, have you been to Cape Town?
No, never. Would love
there
to.
we go. No, you have to come. Well, you've got the inside track now.
Absolutely.
And we love hosting people and showing it off. It's sort of, it's not really a job. It's more an excuse to get out of the office. So Matt gets all the fun, and when other people come, I can go, right, okay, I need to leave the office and show you around. So definitely come and visit.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Matt.
Bye.
Thanks, Matt.
Cheers.